Hi, I'm Steve Fulgoni, and we're here in my wood turning shop today to try to answer one of the questions that I get asked most often at my club, which is, how do you sharpen a bowl gouge with a swept back or Irish grind? Well, let's take a look at exactly what type of grind that is. Here we have a bowl gouge. First, let's take a look at what we call a standard grind, and it's right here. As compared to the swept back grind, which has long wings. Here, in this case, about 3/4 of an inch from here to here, and in some cases people like them even longer and sometimes shorter. Now, I think most of you might be aware that one of the most common tools available to help us with the swept back grind is the Veri-grind jig from One Way Manufacturing. So we're going to use that today, but first let's go back to the standard grind and let's take a look at how we do that. What I have here is my grinding wheel setup. It's a Baldor grinder with 8-inch wheels. I have the new CBN grinding wheels on both sides, 80 on this side, 180 over here, and it's configured with the Wolverine sharpening system. This is the standard arm that comes with the Wolverine system, and it's very useful for grinding skew chisels, roughing gouges, and also bowl gouges with the standard grind. And it would be done like this. You would set this back the proper distance, so the tool sits in the little receiver end here, sits on your grinding wheel, and you rotate this way and this way, and that gives you a bowl gouge standard grind. Still very useful today. Every wood turner should have one, and really optimally used with a super flute shape, and we can talk about that in another video. But now let's talk about the Veri-grind system. What the Veri-grind system does is holds your tool. The point on the Veri-grind system sits in the receiving socket here, and this allows you, instead of just a simple rotating motion as we showed before, it allows a compound motion. So you are sweeping left, right, and the tool is actually moving left to right and rotating at the same time. And that allows you to provide this grind here. Now, what's the problem? First of all, one of the really nice things about the Wolverine system is its flexibility. You can adjust, with this wing nut here, you can adjust this, loosen this wing nut, and this whole assembly moves up, down, so as you can see that puts a different front angle and side angle on here. You can move the tool in and out. You can move this in and out. So again, one of the beautiful things about it is its flexibility, and one of the downsides to it is its flexibility. What we need to do here is come up with a system which is repeatable and very easy to do, so that when I'm on the lathe and I realize that I need to sharpen, I come right over to the grinder, and in just a few seconds I have my tool sharpened and I'm ready to go back on the lathe. The first problem that you can see here with this Baldor grinder, which happens to be a 10-inch grinder with 8-inch wheels, but you have the same problem with the Baldor 8-inch, is that this distance is so high that you're really sitting down low on the wheel, and especially if you move this into different positions, you can get into trouble when you want to put different angles on here. So I have replaced this with a unit from Don Geiger in Florida called the Vertical Solution. It's very similar. It mounts into the one-way Wolverine system socket, but right here, now the socket can move up and down. And I'll explain why that's useful in a few minutes. Okay, so the key to being successful with this whole system is that you want repeatability. Let's look at the things that are variable here. We talked about this. You loosen this wing nut, and this moves. That's one variable. The position of the front of the wheel to the receiving socket is variable. Some people mark this over here to keep that constant, and that will work with these new CBN wheels, but it doesn't work with a traditional vitrified wheel because the wheel wears down. So the mark may be 8 inches this year and maybe 8.5 inches away next year because your wheel has gotten smaller. The next variable is the length that this sticks out from the tool. Let's see how this whole system makes all of those variables very simple to handle. The first thing that we're going to talk about is how we control the distance from here to here. So Don Geiger provides this spacer for us. If you don't have this and you have just a standard one-way, you can use a piece of plywood that you cut into this shape. So now, loosen this up. So this now sets my distance from the wheel surface to here, and it's not critical, but what's important is that it's repeatable. Next, the distance from here to here. Some people use a stop block. That's acceptable. Some people use a tape measure. That's really not accurate enough. And Don Geiger has provided this depth gauge here, which is about 2 inches or so. Again, the most important thing is that it's repeatable. So you take your tool, put it in here, push this up, lock this down. So now my second variable is constrained. First one from here to here, second one from here to here. Third one is this position. You can change this if you want, but for my system, I have set this at the third, just the third position, the third notch. 1, 2, and 3. I lock it in, and I never change it. Okay? So now you can see I'm getting really close. The next thing is the height. Well, we have a very interesting feature here in that if we change the height, you can see that the angle here changes. So in this particular case, I'm at about 2.5 inches. If I lower this down, you can see that this would create a steeper angle. If I raise this up, this would create a longer, shallower angle. And with all the buzz that's out there today, what grinding angle do you use? I use 40 degrees, 48 degrees, 65 degrees, 70 degrees. All these things, bottom of the bowl, steep angles for bottom of the bowls. I use in my system this height to control my front angle. So what I do here, this particular tool has a front angle of 48 degrees. Again, it's not that critical whether it's 48, 50. The most important thing is that it's repeatable when I come off the grinder and come back here. And I've marked this, as you can see here, 48 degrees, BH for block height, and stop is 3. I'll show you that in the camera. Okay? So again, my stop, let's take this out. So what I've called stop is this position here. Now block height. I have a whole set of blocks that I've made. Just made out of phenolic. So this is 2.5 inches, 1 inch. So now I'm going to use my 2.5 inch block. Set that on there. Lock it down. Set my depth. So now I'm ready to go. I locked my distance, I locked my height, I locked my depth. I'm on stop number 3, and these new CBN wheels, it's really hard to see that you've actually done anything. So let's take a little marker, mark up the tool. So now I've spent a lot of time explaining this, but if this were all set up, you would come off the lathe, you've just determined that your gouge needs to be sharpened. You come back in here, set your depth, put on your safety glasses, of course, turn on the grinder. 1. That's it. You're done. I like the old style of the Wolverine, which has this little piece of spring steel. Some people say that it scrapes the front nose. It's not true at all. You just pull this back, pull the tool right out. You get into the habit of it. So now let's take a look at this. Single facet, 48 degrees. Again, it's not critical, but what's most important is that it's repeatable. Okay? So let's take a look. 48 degrees. Let's take a look at some of the other tools I have here. Let me stop the wheel. So I have 2 other tools here. 60 and 70 degrees. And if you look at them on my 60 degree tool, it says block height 1 inch, stop 3. 70 degree tool, block height 1/2 inch. Okay? So let's just say I've used my 48 degree tool. Let's say I've used my 48 degree tool for the front area of a bowl. And now I want to come in and I want to sharpen a gouge which has a steeper angle, which is more useful for getting around the bottom of a bowl. Okay? Watch how easy it is. This is set up for 2.5 inches. Replace it with my 1 inch. Again, just so you can believe that I'm doing something. Mark the tool with some red marker. Set my depth gauge. Turn on the grinder. And there you have it, 60 degrees. Let's say I want to go to my tool, 70 degrees. Take my 70 degree tool. First I'll put in my 1/2 inch block. Go over to my 70 degree tool. Now some of you out there may spend minutes with your grinder set up, getting multiple facets, 70 degrees. Okay? Let's say I want to come back and do my 48 degree gouge. I started to say some of you may spend minutes struggling with your grinder setup, not getting a single facet, taking off too little, or worse, taking off too much. Okay, so I'm back to the 48 degree. And these new CBN wheels are really pretty impressive. This 180, after you have it for a month, it settles in at about 220. and provides pretty much a polish on the tool. Okay, so there you have it. Let's just go over it again. Don't try that at home. Stopping the wheel. Definitely don't try it with a stone wheel. Okay, so again, the key to the system is repeatability. First thing you do is you control the distance from the wheel to the receiver socket. Number one. I leave this on number 3 just for simplicity. Set this at 2.5, which will give me 48 degrees. Mark up my gouge. Set the depth. So everything is exactly repeated from where it was before. So now I've just come off the lathe. Ready to go back. Okay? So that's how simple it can be. I hope I explained that for you. If you have any questions, just send me an email. And thanks for watching.